Well, hello. My name is Ben. Welcome to the channel. So in this channel, we're going to do videos from time to time. I'll try to get maybe one or two out a month, if not more, to discuss a little bit about business and about leadership specifically. I myself have been in business for better than 3 decades and have enjoyed positions from emptying the trash all the way up to running multi-site and multi-million-dollar organizations. I think one of the most disturbing trends is, and that's why I'm creating this video today, is the thought around urgency versus actually doing what's first. There are several great books on this out there, so I'm going to flow through this a little bit and try to take time on some important points. Most of the videos I'm going to do are going to be less than 20 minutes, or right at 20 minutes. If I go a little long, though, I can talk. So if I go a little long, stick with it. If you can get through the full video, I'm going to recommend books and resources that may be useful, typically towards the end. The talk I gave this morning, and the reason I'm doing this video, is we're talking about turnover and losing good teammates, right? So in any business, whether it be manufacturing or nursing, medical field, whatever it may be, the sense of urgency and everything being urgent is what people are up to now. That seems to be the trend in the 2020s. It seems to be what we've focused on greatly. And since the outburst of COVID, which was extremely urgent for a lot of businesses to get ahead of that and be safe in that, it's kind of a thought process that is stuck, unfortunately. And it seems that most people don't have an opportunity to cut their brain off and get back to reality and move away from this instantly urgent, instantly contact, instantly lifestyle we live in. One of the worst things that we did was get ourselves strapped to these things, right? What that does, it allows people to get in touch with you 24/7. It's nonstop. So where we thought email was initially going to reduce the amount and the expectancy around communication, email was supposed to take place of the fax and supposed to reduce the number of meetings that we have and supposed to do things that make life easier. Unfortunately, what we've seen is email now becomes the body of work that people do every day. They go in and they're working through their emails, and by the end of the day, they've emptied that email box. But what did that do exactly? Did it give more heedance to what is supposed to be urgent, or did they actually go in and focus on what they had to get done that day? There's some great books out there. One's called Eat That Frog. If you are looking at a book to read that one. It talks about having a short list of the most important things, and when you go in for your day, you want to start that, and you want to make sure you complete those things each day, and you want to have that list prepared for tomorrow at the end of the day each day. That gives you a way to mark your week and have successes throughout the week and actually have an impact on what you're doing. But back to the urgent thought process. So I'm not going to wait to the end. There's a book by Stephen Covey called First Things First. I would recommend that everyone in business or everyone in leadership read that book. I would read anybody, and I would also suggest that anybody in marketing or management or any of those programs in college or anybody that's a senior in high school read that book. In there, it's got a lot of what I'm talking about, but it also talks a little bit about who you are and how your mind works, and then what you should do around your schedule, around your goals for the day to match who you actually are. What we don't realize is our personality impacts a lot of things that we do. And there's things that you have no control over, that you're going to respond a certain way. So you shouldn't allow those things to impact you before you have the productivity of your day complete. And I think that's the piece about urgency. So what I'm talking about here is you have a specific plan for a day that's extremely important to get out, whether it be a budget, hiring decision, a new business line, sales calls, whatever it may be. It's extremely imperative that the numbers game work out in your favor. So in the sales game, for example, the more people you call in a day, the more people you contact, the higher level of sales you're going to make, because it's a numbers game. If you talk to 50 people and you get one prospect out of 50, then that means you need to be talking to multiple quantities of 50 a day to get more prospects to increase your revenue, right? So if it's 1 per 50, then if you call 200 people, you're going to have 4 options for a sale as opposed to just the one. So the more people you call, the more money you make. That's a sales game that most people in most sales books talk about. Grant Cardone has a whole list of courses you can take, and he has 2 books dedicated to specifically that, talking about how it is a numbers game. So there are habits that you have to get into that you need to stick to be successful in roles. And I think the First Things First book, it definitely helps stick to some of those things. When I'm mentoring teammates or when I'm talking to people about their business, I've been a consultant in business for nearly 30 years. I've worked for small businesses, big businesses. I've done contracts for extremely huge organizations. And I find the same limitations, the same difficulties throughout. There's nothing different depending on the scale of the business. The size of the conversations is a bit different, but you see people come up against the same thing. The most expensive thing you're going to do in business is pay for your team and pay for your teammates. So to lose good people is going to cost you more than anything else, no matter what the size of your business is. If your leadership is toxic, if you have people in place for a very long period of time, and you're noticing that you have certain roles that keep turning over, those roles are turning over because of the limitations due to that toxic leadership. If you've made the right selection, you've hired the right person with the right personality, with the right determination and right tenacity, they have the right resume, they have the great history, they have long terms of employment elsewhere, and they can't stay where you are, they keep turning over, that's saying now you need to look at your leadership, not your hiring process. Everyone always goes and vets the hiring process and says, do we hire for this or do we hire for that? And all these other things come into it. Ultimately, hiring, and my assumption of hiring is you hire the right person for the job, period. It's not based on anything else other than the fact that they have experience, they have successes in these roles. That should suggest that they have success in the role you're offering. And by hiring the right person that has that success, then you should be doing the right thing for your business. You should be being responsibly appropriate. So when you hire that person, they should have all of the opportunities. And as a leader, your goal should be removing any obstacles from that person's path. You want to train them up on the expectations around what the organization represents and that code of conduct and that structure around a mission statement. But ultimately, you want to give that teammate the opportunity to survive and thrive in that location. Steve Jobs said it best when he said, your job as a leader is to hire the right people and get out of the way. I think that's a fantastic quote. And I think that's one of the things that he said appropriately. Now, whether or not you agree with Apple or how they ran their business and buying businesses and buying thought process, it worked very well for them. What I see when I speak to teammates where they're feeling no sense of belonging, no sense of quality, and they don't like where they're at, the reason that's the case is because they're being micromanaged. They're not allowed to spread their wings and actually have the impact that they know they can have. So they're looking for that elsewhere. These mass exodus from companies from one industry to another, back and forth between competitors, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on forever because people want to focus on the words. They want to focus on all these key phrases that everybody's loving and posting and all that jazz. But they're not focused on how it actually rolls out down to the people that are in the trenches and fighting the fight that your organization represents, whatever that may be. So I want to talk about specifically leadership and how you can stay out of that reactive mindset. So number one is to be extremely deliberate. You have to have a deliberate thought process and you have to have a deliberate plan. And that plan needs to plan for the long term. The longer you're planning, as long as the business is feasible, you also have to focus on the day-to-day, but the longer you're planning, the more secure your expectations could be, and the less responsive, reactive you have to be. Proper prior planning will create a better expectation and hopefully have processes to support what you're doing to get there. Okay, so that's the first piece, to be deliberate in planning for the long term. The next thing is communication. Communication is what I spoke to a little bit earlier. More frequent communication is not better communication, okay? If you speak so often on every single point, then what happens is you have this noise that doesn't go away and it doesn't let people focus on the points of leadership that you're trying to get across. So, you do want to repeat your key process and your key thoughts. People should be able to tell your stories. If you're in leadership, I've been told this often by patients in a previous role and by teammates. Boss, you need more stories. Mr. Ben, you need more stories because I've heard this one so many times. The point is, they see and they validate your stories. They know it's true and they know it impacted you because the repetition of those things. So when it comes to communication, you want to communicate quickly and effectively. Remove all the fat, trim it all down, get the key points there, spoken in clear English where everyone understands. If you do that and you communicate quickly, people aren't looking at, let's use an email, for example. If you send out an email on important communications, but you send out 20 emails a day on everything else as well, it's going to go into a box that may just have your name on it. And it may not get opened, because right now in email, you can open up a box, you can have everything that automatically goes from this person into this folder. So the issue is now that even though you send the communication out, you have to assume that the person didn't hear it. That's one of the best things that I heard, and that's a Grant Cardone quote. I heard it came out of his mouth, and I'm not a huge fan of him or anyone else. I just think he has some key points that are pretty impressive, and that was one of them. He said that if you email, text, and call someone, just assume that they didn't hear the message that you had and call them again if you think it's necessary. So the communication is clear, and be repetitive. But the issue is you don't want to go ad nauseum, and it doesn't need to be extremely lengthy, because people ultimately are going to think, well, I'll get it from other people. This takes too much time. So be quick and be effective. Effective meaning make sure that people understand the point you're trying to get across. Effective doesn't mean you harp on something over and over again. It's the understanding is what's key in effective communication. Also, texting. A lot of people use texting as their primary communication these days. Let me tell you, that's a bad idea. Any private information go out on text. Any private personal information, when you're talking about the medical industry, PPI, or private policy and financial information in the financial industry, it's awful to do that via text because that's not a secure platform. It's not what you should be doing. If your email is a secure platform, then use that. But I say pick up the phone and call the person. Also, a text doesn't relay the proper emotion. It doesn't relay the proper urgency, and it doesn't relay the calmness. Unfortunately, what 20 years of cell phones have done for us is seasoned that everyone expects an answer right away. Before cell phones, that wasn't the case. Before cell phones, people had office hours. And so if you faxed me after hours, I would call you when I got back into the office. You wouldn't text me at 10 p.m. and expect a response. You wouldn't call me at midnight and expect me to pick up. That's the damage that cell phones have done. It's taken, and it does have a mental impact, which we'll talk about that in later videos when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to actually how people recover. I'll say this briefly on that. It's been proven that we don't have time to recover from work because we get text and emails 24/7. Any profession you should be in, this isn't a new thought process. The book I actually got out was written in 1908. Back then, people read papers and periodicals, and they got stuff like that daily, but they may not read it until they got home at night. So the point was you had the same continuing process of business only, and it would create too much of a demand for people's time. So they never actually reset. They never did something they enjoyed. They never did something that actually would take that grief from them. So they weren't able to recover. Well, if you don't recover, you don't recover, you don't recover, the quality of your work goes down. Okay. And so also does the value of your sleep and the value of your personal time. It goes down. So you have to make a dedicated thought process in your head to spend your time wisely, which leads to the next point, setting a daily routine. So just as important as being deliberate in how you do things, setting a daily routine creates a level of consistency. When I had teammates and worked on location, I had office hours. I had open door policy, which means anytime a teammate needed to come talk to me, I stuck to my routine so severely that if they came to talk to me and I was during that period of time, I would see them. But the dedication to that daily schedule, I knew I'd be able to recover whatever I missed tomorrow by keeping this schedule and being deliberate in doing that, right? It's just like we were talking about sales earlier. When you put the money in and you put the time in each day, as you continue to do that, those numbers stack up and ultimately you're going to win the numbers game. It's the same thing. That continuity of process and routine is what drives the calmness. And as leaders, and that's actually what prompted me to do this video. I was speaking with the gentleman earlier where we were talking about how people are so reactive. And unfortunately, that's the trend in business, right? Everybody's reactive and they don't do the first things first. They don't do what's important, which not doing what's important negatively impacts your plan for the long term. So that's why you can't focus on urgency. You have to focus on what's first things first. So after the daily routine, what that daily routine is going to do is going to have you doing a proper set of assessments. Inspect what you expect, right? So on that daily routine, you're looking at finances, you're looking at performance, you're looking at production, you're looking at quality. You're doing these things where you have a set routine where no one gets out of it. Every day you're checking these things so you don't miss something for multiple days and you get a big whammy because you didn't pay attention to something. So that's the other piece is the more you set that daily routine, the less gotchas are going to come in your path because you have that. Next thing is meet challenges with enthusiasm. Life is challenge. That's all it is. Okay, from the day we're born to the day we die, all life is challenge. That challenge is extremely valuable. Challenge teaches you the people you can trust. It teaches you how you can earn your living. It teaches you what is valuable in your education, right? There's a modern thought process. You don't need a college degree. I disagree with that. I think everybody should have a degree in business. Everyone. Pick your other major too, but also get a degree in business. And that's an associate's degree, whatever it is, bachelor's, master's, whatever you want to do. Certificates. You can get certificates online that are business certificates. Do that. Any education you do, it's going to impact the quality of your response to challenges that arise. So sociologists, psychologists say things like life is suffering, right? If you look at the mentality, it was spoken by the Stoics 2,000 years ago. Or Marcus Aurelius in his book, Meditations, his basic quote was, life is suffering. So when you wake up each morning, you need to expect that. Your suffering is no bigger or no more important than someone else's. It's just specifically relevant to you because you're suffering. Some of it is legitimate, and I'm not making light of it. But I'm saying those things that we go through create the experience that allows us to improve and get better over time, right? One of the quotes that all this energy and strength is wasted on the youth. They say that because by the time you've lived life enough to get the experience you need, typically you're greater in years. Marcus Aurelius said, whether a man lives 1,000 years or 40 years, it's the same. Because once you reach 40, you've seen everything. And now it's just you enduring repetition. So if you have that calmness around that, and you know that you grow from these challenges and these obstacles, then you should meet challenges with enthusiasm because it's a chance to grow. And even if you don't win a situation the way you see you should have, if you grow from it, that's what life's about. You get better. And the next time you have that challenge or someone else has that challenge, you can handle it easier for them because you've been through this education. That's a severe piece, and an extremely important piece of growing and learning, right? You have to go through that experience because it's earned. So meet challenges with enthusiasm. As you've heard me here, this is one of the greatest things that I would suggest for anybody. And I did not, when I was younger, until I was 20 years old, I didn't read with regularity. Reading is extremely important if you want to be a leader, if you want to be successful in anything in life. You must read. At least with Facebook and LinkedIn and those things, you are getting articles with regularity. So if you don't read anything else, at least that is there. The problem is things are misquoted. You don't know where it comes from. You have a lot of opinion and all that. Each individual book, and you'll see some of my selections behind me, but I have 3 rooms in my house dedicated now to my books. I try to read at least 3 or 4 a month. I don't read any fiction. It's all nonfiction. It's all business or ethics or something around that. I get a lot of internal growth from that. And here's the other thing around reading. There's a shortage of mentors in life. Okay? That's always the case for everyone in every field. I've talked to physicians that feel like there's no one to help them or teach them anything. I've talked to janitors that say the same thing. I've talked to fast food workers that say the same thing. I've talked to nurses. You name it. People feel like there's a complete lack of mentors in the world because everyone's so focused on urgency. Nobody's focused on the long term. Mentorship is a key piece of long-term planning. So if you don't have the people in your life that can mentor you, if you don't have a circle of influence that's going to make you get better, then you have to get that from somewhere. That's why I started turning to books. Reading helps. You can get key concepts. Books stay relevant, meaning as people, we don't evolve that impressively over centuries. The same problems we had a century ago are the same problems we're focusing on today. If you follow politics, you can see that it's extremely ridiculous that this group says one thing, this group says the other, and they bang it out and constantly. The only thing they can agree upon is they don't know how to budget a checkbook. And I'm showing you my age now because I'm talking about a checkbook, because even that is not something that's used commonly anymore. I suggest you do, though, because you can manage your money better. But that's the point, is that there's a lack of mentors. There's a lot of opinion, a lot of emotion. That's fine. Emotion is key, right? Emotion is how you get things done. It's how you influence people. It's how people make a lot of the decisions. But I'll tell you this, emotion can make people waste a lot of time. You have 100 years, maybe, right? When we're born, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Any day can be our last. And if you're focused on emotion or what's going to get you fired up or what's going to get this, that's a very fast way to spend a lot of time and have no result. The opposite of that is reading. When you read, you have a conversation with that author. That author may have lived centuries ago. They may still be alive, but you have a conversation with that person. You escape your thought process and you view theirs for a little while, and that is how you cultivate growth, even if it's around a specific concept. Whether you read the Bible or don't read the Bible's been around for thousands of years. That is a great way to learn wisdom from a group of people that came before you. And wisdom is, right, it's improving from other people's mistakes and not having to make the same mistakes yourself. However, the key to life is suffering. So if you don't learn from other people's mistakes and you want to make those mistakes yourself, then so be it. That is going to give you experience, but that's going to limit your performance a bit. So that's the other piece, is to be competitive. Being deliberate is a key point of that. So next thing is spend money wisely. There's a book called The Psychology of Money. Everyone should read it. It should be taught in every school across the country. It's a fantastic book. It shows you a couple of key things. One key point that I'll mention is this. It talks about having enough, right? It talks about Madoff and those clowns that were millionaires and billionaires before they went into the illegal nonsense they did that put them in prison. They had more money than they could ever spend. And then they chose to be jiggy and got arrested for being thieves and being liars. That book, The Psychology of Money, it's going to tell you a little bit of how you should think or what you should do. My suggestion around money is real easy. I'm not your accountant, I'm not your lawyer, but my opinion is you have a house, you pay for it, you pay it off, because then you're secure and you have a piece of dirt you can fight from. I think every male especially, and I'm a man, so I'm speaking to men, I think as a man, buy you a piece of dirt, buy you a house, whatever it is, and you can manage your money from that. Pay it off as quickly as possible so it is yours, and don't remortgage it. Insure it, but don't remortgage it. If you have that, no matter what goes on in the world, you have a place to lay your head. That's a sense of security that no one can take from you, right? You still have to pay taxes on it, but that's hopefully going to go away in our lifetime, right? Where you don't have to pay property taxes after you purchase a property. I think property taxes are an antiquated thing that should go away because most people live in apartments these days. So why do property owners have to keep paying property taxes? That will be in a different video probably. So there we are. Spend money wisely. Guys, look for options. Look for wisdom elsewhere. Read the books. Have an accountant that you talk to. Find a trusted circle of people that you can reach out to. And a lot of these people will talk freely. They'll go to your city council meetings. They'll go to your local business groups. The business bureau can tell you who's good and who's going to do a speech. Follow them on Facebook. Follow them on LinkedIn. Get the information you need. When people speak for free, you don't have to pay for these services. And then make your own opinion based on what you believe around how to spend your money wisely. Spending money wisely is much simpler than you think. Okay, budgeted, a long-term plan, all these things go right back into each component of each one of these things we talk about. A long-term plan on your money is a big thing. Buy your house, pay it off, put 30% of your pay away for a rainy day, and you'll always be secure. Have health insurance, have homeowners insurance, so when the big things hit, you're covered. A big illness can take all the money out of your bank and take everything on your own. Have insurance to cover those things. Have those things. Insure what you own. So if it gets damaged, you get some money out of it. You can replace it. It might not be replacement value, but you can replace it. Have insurance. Those things are more important than having a $1,000 phone. Those things are more important than having the newest watch or the newest shoes or the newest whatever. Those things are more important because that's securing your lifestyle and the lifestyle of your loved ones. If you have loved ones, then you should have insurance. I'm now in the insurance business as well, and I'll tell you, talking to people who lost everything because someone died, it's awful. It's awful. You have a secure life today, someone gets killed in a car wreck, which is very common, and you don't have insurance. Now your primary income is gone. Now everything you own is at risk. And the whole world has just been turned upside down. So, it's one piece to spend your money wisely. Make sure you have the things covered that need to be covered. Then there's two other pieces that we'll say, and I'll try to cut through this very quickly. One, never stop networking. Networking is not what people think it is. It's not going to all the events that something does. Networking is increasing your circle. People that respect you, speak to them often. People that you respect, speak to them often. Try to have some meetings. Take someone to lunch. There's a salesman that says he never eats alone. That's one way to look at it. Have conversations, deliberate conversations monthly with specific people that can impact you in your business, and you can impact them in their business. And that cohesion, that participation between the two of you can actually create a different situation where you both can benefit from the other. And that symbiotic relationship is what you need to have, and you need to create as many of those as possible. If you're just starting out and you're a young person, you already know 2 or 3 people. And guys, with Facebook and LinkedIn being what it is these days, be nice to everyone. Be kind, be professional, be courteous to everyone. Those people that you go to class with, those will be business owners one day. Those may be able to impact your career one day. You may be able to impact their career one day. So be nice. Every time you have an interchange between people, that is networking. So be deliberate in your communication. Be clear, be effective, and then be nice. Create those relationships that will last. And then the last point I'm going to make is the most important. It's nurture yourself, take care of yourself, make sure that you're mentally looking out for yourself, because nobody else is going to, okay? Let me be clear on that. Your family, your spouse, your friends, strangers, fans, followers, all these people, none of them are going to worry about nurturing you as a human being, you as an individual. So I'm going to get a little deep, but I'm going to try to get it quick because I'm running on 30 minutes here. I'll say this. I am a Christian, so I see things through a Christian viewpoint, which is this. God has a relationship with your soul before you're ever born. That's why every soul matters. God has a relationship with your soul. He knows you before you're born, okay? Whether you believe that or not, or if you're not a Christian, you have a different religion, most religions teach that same thing, that you as an individual are important, okay? So with that being said, your individualism is what you have to take care of. All this group think, left or right, all these things, it's just noise. In the end, it's one soul, okay? If you don't make sure you're getting what you need, if your diet is not appropriate, so let's talk about diet. Diet isn't just what you eat. What you eat is important, but it's also what you ingest. It's what you watch. It's what you listen to. It's what you say. Your self-speak is going to impact your nurturing environment more than anything else. So you need to be positive in what you say to yourself. You need to be specifically deliberate and listen to what you're saying internally. If your natural response to something is or negative, then your life is going to turn out negative a lot. There's plenty of psychology books that are around that. I can recommend a few in later videos. But I'll say this. That self-nurturing, if you're in an environment that's bad, leave it. Okay? It doesn't matter what the situation is. You owe that to yourself. Also, like I said earlier, we may have 100 years, right? As soon as we're born, we're dying. Our time is limited. Time is the most valuable resource you have. It's also the most limited resource, and it's the only resource you can't get back. You can get money back, you can make new friends, you can make new family, right? You cannot get that time back. So spend deliberate time nurturing yourself in a certain way. Exercise is part of your diet. Food is part of your diet. What you read, what you write, what you say, what you listen to, what you watch. Make sure you're being deliberate around these things. To nurture yourself, you have a spiritual component, you have a physical component, and you have a philosophy. The philosophy is what you believe and what you choose. It's the lifestyle you live, okay? You choose your lifestyle. You choose how you live. You may not choose where you come from. That's fair. But you choose how you focus and what you're going to do, okay? That's the piece that we have the biggest question mark with. That's the piece that our education, our schools do very little to cultivate, okay? That's why people join such weird groups when they're in their 20s and everything else. That's fine. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. When you live to 40, then you know who you are as a person. and you know what you are and what you think and what you know. Okay, the coolest thing about reaching 40 is you realize you don't know shit, and you have to figure those things out. The sooner you realize that, and the more you read, and the more you learn, and the more you educate, the more you realize I don't know a lot. And what you are more aware of is how much you don't know, and that will never change. Okay? If you focus on you as an individual, what do you believe? What's important to you? And you put that as a primary thing that you meditate on or think on at least once a day, just a few moments. And I'm not saying neglect your family, neglect your kids, neglect your spouse. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying to be a better spouse, to be a better child or parent, to be a better member of society, to be a better man, woman, whatever, you need to spend time looking internally and making sure you're okay. Okay? The best suggestion I can give you, and if your mind is thinking too much, write. If it's thinking too little, read. These have been the answers to these problems for millennia. It's not going to change. The best suggestion I can give for self-care is have days where you cut the electronics off and you go outside with no shoes on and you walk around in the grass. If you live in Texas, don't do it in the summers, you'll burn your feet. But outside of that, I think getting back to who you are, to your core, who that person is when you were a child, and you decided what it was you liked to play with or what you liked to read or what things made your eyes open wide, right? The first time you saw a horse, the first time you saw a dog, whatever it may be, get back to that core and make sure you're taking care of yourself. Well, guys, this video went a little long. I've been toying around with the idea of making this channel for a while. This is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do a couple of videos a month. Maybe I'll get to the point where I'm doing 1 or 2 a week based on what time allows. I've lived a lot of life, had a lot of life experiences. Everything I share here is from my experience and my education. Later in the video, we're going to talk about intelligence. And the interesting about that is your belief in your life comes from your experiences, right? If 6 kids were raised in the same house with the same parents at the same time, they all would have a different life experience. They would have a different opinion of it, whether it was a good childhood or a bad childhood. They would either be whole or broken or whatever it is. That all comes back to that individual soul, okay? So what I'm giving you is from my life experience. Hopefully you'll get some benefit from it. Hopefully there'll be some knowledge here that'll be useful for you. I mention books often. So if I mention one, pause the video, rewind it, get those things. I will not mention a book that I didn't get some value from. I've got a collection of over 50 that I reread every year. They're that impactful to me. Every time I read them, I get something new out of. I suggest you start that for yourself, whoever you are, wherever you are. Books don't have to be expensive. You can get them for thrift stores, online thrift stores, Goodwill. You can get them for less than $1, sometimes $3. You know, you can buy two or three books for well under $5 bill probably. But do these things and be deliberate. Or go and get your library card. Get your library card. Those libraries still exist, right? There's a bunch of audiobooks in there too, where if you don't have time to read, you can listen to it. Be deliberate and have an impact your own life for the better. And if you do that, you'll see things start to go your way a little bit more. You'll see that you can be happier with yourself as an individual. And everything I say on this channel, everything I say on this site will be dedicated to you as an individual. It's not dedicated to a group or a group of folks that you may be a part of. I'm talking to one person at a time. And if you get something of value, please like and share. Please return to the channel. Please send other people to it. Please watch everything that we put out if you get some value from it. If you don't, I appreciate the time. You know, I wish you the best, and I hope you do what's great. Now, quote one other YouTuber. You know, just remember to do something today that makes you better tomorrow than you were yesterday. That's from Matt. He's a smart young guy, and I think that's a brilliant way to look at life. Be good.